Folks, this is Book Talk with Corbin. I'm your host, and we have one of our most popular guests with us again. He's not just a guest, he's really now a friend of the show. Best-selling New York Times author, David Horowitz, one of the most prolific writers I've ever known of, great intellectual.
Can't help myself.
That's good. I'm glad you can't help yourself, brother, because every time you publish something, it is important. It is really something. I just want to, for my listeners, Radical Son, The Black Book of the American Left, and your latest book, The Enemy Within, How a Totalitarian Movement is Destroying America.
There it is.
Right there, folks. You need to get that.
The totalitarians, the leaders of the Democrat Party.
Now, brother, this isn't the way I wanted to start the interview, but I do want to touch upon this real quick. I noticed you have Kamala Harris on that front cover.
Yeah, she hates America. Look, this is such a corrupt human being. During the campaign, she accused Biden of being a racist and a rapist, and then she joined his team. And we picked her. Here's a woman who got 2% of the vote in a California Democrat presidential primary when she had been the district attorney of San Francisco and the attorney general for the state of California. Why did they pick her? Because she's so corrupt, she will protect all the criminal Bidens and all the other criminals around the White House. That's why. This is a criminal operation. The current White House.
And you know, brother, I don't know if you've seen the video or not. I remember it wasn't that long ago. She put out a video where she talks about, you know how they talk about, but she talked about very, very clearly, openly, guaranteed outcomes. She wants it.
They're communists. I mean, it's really simple. They think every disparity in income, for example, has to do with race. If you think everybody's equal, try, shooting hoops like Steph Curry. Everybody is not equal. Everybody has different talents, different attention spans, different energy. The only equitable thing to do is to have equal opportunity.
Yes.
That is, you just you don't have any racial or other bars to succeeding. And, it's really terrible. The Democrat Party is a racist party. I mean, Biden, one of his first statements, which he got from Black Lives Matter, is that systemic racism touches every aspect of American life. That's a monstrous lie. You would expect it from, the Chinese communists or the Iranian mullahs or Putin. You wouldn't expect it from a president of the United States.
Right.
There is no systemic racism in America except affirmative action, which got a pass from the Supreme Court. But other than that, it's illegal. Institutional racism is illegal under the Civil Rights Act of 1964. It's been illegal for over 50 years. So take the police departments. If police departments were actually systemically racist, first of all, they'd have to fire all their black police chiefs. But secondly, if they were, there would be a tsunami of lawsuits for tens of millions of dollars.
Yes.
And you think the way Democrats think that all white people who disagree with them are white supremacists. Even if you thought that, there are thousands of black attorneys, black district attorneys, black attorney generals, black mayors of major cities, black city council members, black state representatives, black congresspeople. There would just be massive lawsuits all over the place if there was a shred of truth that there's systemic racism. There is, and of course, you know that police departments like New York, which they are destroying, the majority of the members of the NYPD are people of color.
Mm.
The country is so beyond that kind of racism. But the Democrats, I was about to say I'm speechless, but obviously I'm not. I wrote this whole book.
Right. Yeah, right. And let me say this again to our listeners. The Enemy Within, How Totalitarian Movement is Destroying America. You can go to Amazon.com and get it, or you can go to is it the David Horowitz Freedom Center? Is that correct?
Yeah, it's if you go on the web, just go to Front Page Magazine or Front Page Mag, MAG.com, and you can get the book. You can get it at Amazon.
Right.
Or anywhere. You should be able to, Barnes and Noble.
Brother, let me share a couple of personal things with you. One is my father. He was on the Kentucky Commission on Human Rights. He was actually recruited for that. Before that time, he was serving on the local level at Warren, Ohio with the Urban League. And knowing my father's political views as well as I did, I think he would be absolutely astounded at seeing the progress Black folk have made politically in this country. And even not even talking about President of the United States. Yeah, and not even talking about a two-term Black president of the United States.
Yeah, Juan Williams, it's called it, I forget what he called it, a miraculous transformation. It's the greatest social revolution in the history of the world in the last 50 or 60 years. Mm-hmm. Since and because of the civil rights movement, which was a biracial movement. Yes. The key players in that civil rights movement were white people, and they gave their lives too. Yes. But the left won't take yes for an answer. It's just terrible. And so they've spent the last 50 years reintroducing race into every aspect of American life. It affects everything now. Getting jobs, getting into universities, just terrible.
And that was not...
And I don't think, it's really fascinating to me. You turn on the TV and you see the ads. I would say 70% of the ads, at least on my TV, on all channels, there are Black people, there are integrated couples, there are Black husbands and white wives, which was, horrific during the bad days of segregation and so forth. You could get lynched for that. Now, these corporations don't want to lose customers. So they know that Americans have really gone past this kind of racism. And that's why the left is talking about, what do they call it? Unconscious racism. It's, you're racist even if you think you're not, even if you,
Right.
I don't know. I can't remember. I'm getting old, so I don't remember all these specific things. But somebody was accused because they had a Black wife or a white person with a Black wife or vice versa of being, racist anyway. You're in love. You make a life commitment to a person of another color. How can you be a racist?
Right. Brother, let me take you back. You were there during the height of the civil rights movement. I mean, you were actively involved. Was it about then what we're seeing now as far as...
Absolutely not. There was a turning point. Martin Luther King, first of all, his whole vision was conservative. It was to implement the Constitution. The Constitution does not have the words Black or white in it. It doesn't have male or female either. They were committed. Of course, it took hundreds of years of struggle to achieve what we have now. But they were committed to the equality of all. It's in the Declaration of Independence. All men are created equal and have a God-given right to liberty. That was revolutionary. For 3,000 years, slavery in Africa and elsewhere was never morally challenged. There were no condemnations on the moral grounds of slavery until actually it's white Christian males in England, Wilberforce in England, and Thomas Jefferson in America declared it immoral and evil. And changing social institutions is not an easy task. So it took a while and it took a lot of bloodshed, but it happened.
Yes. Yeah. You know, I saw a video.
Let me just, lost my train there. So Martin Luther King, he was a conservative, really wanted to implement the existing Constitution and extend it in particular to the segregated South. But somewhere towards the end of the 60s, after the Civil Rights Act, Stokely Carmichael, who was an anti-American racist, the left began talking about Black power and introducing what I would call tribal morality back into, and they called Martin Luther. I, as you know, raised a lot of money for the Black Panther Party, and they used to refer to Martin Luther King as Martin Luther Coon. Mm. They had utter contempt for him. They were radicals, and they were driven by Marxism, forerunners of the Black Lives Matter movement, and they wanted to overthrow the whole system. They were not about integrating Black people into full citizenship, which is what the Martin Luther King movement was about. And that's why Martin Luther King, if you look at those old films, everybody demonstrating, they're not wearing ninja costumes. They're wearing suits and ties. Martin Luther King insisted on nonviolence. There was no looting of stores. The violent people were the racist cops in the South. And that's how the civil rights movement at One America, it was a moral example that was irresistible to Americans, particularly after the Second World War, when we fought a racist ideology in Nazism. So it's a terrible thing. When Martin Luther King was killed, Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton, two race hustlers, transformed that movement into an extortionist movement. Mm-hmm. They would go, to beer companies and say, fork over the money, or we'll boycott you and call you racist.
Right, which is exactly what Black Lives Matter is doing now.
Exactly, and that's why, it's just a terrible thing that's happened. But I think the American people are very, you don't see, the overt racists. There are some white supremacists, but they're tiny. When they hold the demonstration, there's like 10 times as many people demonstrating against them. The Ku Klux Klan, which was a Democrat Party operation at its height, they had 11 U.S. senators and something like 87 members of Congress. Mm. They had 4 million members in a country that at the time had only 100 million people. Now we have 330 million people. The Ku Klux Klan has something like 3,000 members. And there is who can you name that's a white supremacist who actually is one, except David Duke. Right. Some people, they're so obscure, so marginal, and that's why the left resorts to this unconscious racism.
So, in a sense, are you arguing that, in a sense, the American left, of which is a large number in the Democratic Party right now, they're just sort of using that as a tool to gain power?
They own the Democrat Party. It was Barack Obama who brought them in. And Barack Obama, as you know, he was raised by white people in the first place. Secondly, he was raised by communists, just the way I was. But he never left the communist movement. He never attacked communism. And once I saw that communism was evil, I dedicated myself to warning Americans of the threat they were facing in the Hate America left. But Barack Obama, and he's gotten worse. I mean, he's just encouraging anti-white racism, just stoking the fires of racial hatred. It's just terrible what he's done.
Folks, we're talking today with our guest and a friend of the show, Book Talk with Corbin here, The Enemy Within, How Totalitarian Movement is Destroying America. We're speaking with New York Times bestselling author David Horowitz. Always gain a lot from him when we talk to him, gain good perspective. It is absolutely critical that we get these kind of books. We buy his books, we read them and share them with other folks, and maybe even do like book clubs where we can come together, read the book, study it. Because he's not just pulling things out of the air. This is a well-documented book. This is a well-documented book, and we have to really hear what this brother is saying. Brother, you write a lot. Surely this is it. Isn't this you're going to be like Michael Jackson, right?
I've already written another book, which will be out in October.
What's that?
I've already written another book, which will be out in October.
I was about to say, you're going to be like Michael Jackson and say, this is it, but apparently not.
Yeah.
Are you allowed to tell us give us a little taste of what this next book is?
It's called I Can't Breathe, How a Racial Hoax is Killing America. There were two events this week, terrible events, both of them. There was this incident in Minnesota, and where Daunte Wright, who's a violent criminal, was shot by a police officer named Kim Potter. Oh, sorry about that. Kim Potter, who had served 26 years on the force, stellar record. Everybody knows that traffic stops are very dangerous for police officers. In fact, the week before, there was an incident where the criminal, and they want you to always show your hands and then get out of the car, because the car can be hiding weapons. And just the week before, a criminal was stopped, and he got out of the car, and then he jumped back into the car and got a rifle and killed the officer. Mm. So there were so many lies around this incident. First of all, if you listen to anybody on the left, he was killed because of a traffic stop. Somebody said even that police doing traffic stops should be unarmed, which is an invitation to kill police.
You better believe it.
It wasn't the traffic stop. What the traffic stop did was allow them to go into his record. This was he was an armed robber who had jumped $100,000 bail. And the robbery shows what a malicious human being Daunte Wright was. He had been invited to a party. Obviously, he knew the hostess. The party, and he went with a male friend. The party lasted very late. So this hostess, out of the kindness of her heart, offered to let him stay in her house overnight. So he wouldn't have to, I don't know how far away his house was, but he wouldn't have to go home in the middle of the night. These two got up in the morning, and Daunte Wright grabbed the woman by the throat, put a gun to her head, and demanded her cash, which was something like $850. So that's how he repaid her kindness. I think he's a gang member, but don't know. But in any case, lunging into the car as he did was, why did he resist arrest? Because he knew that he was facing long jail time for armed robbery and jumping bail. That's why he did it. Now, the family gives out these pictures. First of all, you have that Benjamin Crump, who's just a kind of racist ambulance chaser is what he is, represent every one of these cases. They presented these pictures of Dante Wright with a little kid on his lap, like he's some benevolent character instead of a dangerous criminal. And of course, we know that 95%, I don't know the race of the woman in that house, but I'll bet she was Black. 95% of the victims of Black criminals are Black.
Yes.
So every time you empower Black criminals, you're endangering the lives of Black people, something that left just averts its eyes from.
You're absolutely, yeah, I totally agree with that.
Why would the family? So the family went on, and it's all about, Blacks are targets of, white hunters. I mean, it's just insanity. Why would the family do that? Well, because they're going to get millions of dollars. George Floyd's family got $27 million. Breonna Taylor, who was an accomplice to a major drug dealer, helped him in his crimes. She got killed because her current boyfriend shot the police when they showed up with a warrant. She got killed in the crossfire. Her family got $12 million. We are now in an era of overt racism from the government. It's driven by Black Lives Matter and Antifa, but it's also all these, I don't even know how to describe them, these white elitists who live in protected communities, gated communities. They have their own security, and they're going to virtue signal by holding all Black people as model citizens, even if they're violent criminal. I mean, it's so insulting to Black America to celebrate these criminals. The book I've done, I went over all of the cases that Black Lives Matter puts up, and they're all violent criminals resisting arrest.
Yes.
They're not martyrs in any sense. It's the civil rights movement used to be, it's the figures that it celebrated and defended and tried to seek justice for were people like Emmett Till, a 12-year-old who was, murdered by these white racists. Yeah. Now it's all criminals. It's all criminals.
And you're so right about that, brother. You're so accurate on that. And again, this is why I love having you on to give us perspective.
How white people are treated. The same day this poor officer, they've destroyed her reputation, her career, and her life. And let's face it, what we have is a national lynch mob. The lynchings, Judge Lynch, I guess is what they're named after, were originated as frontier justice. It's people who were impatient with due process. Due process meaning you investigate the facts, you have a trial where the defendant gets to defend themselves, then you have a verdict, then you have a punishment. Well, the lynch mob wants the verdict first, and the punishment. This woman's already been punished. The verdict is already in, and then maybe a trial. We have a national lynch mob. It's being led by Patrisse Cullors. What did she just bought $3 million worth of fancy houses? It's hypocrisy is so naked. Anyway, the same day that this woman was arraigned, Kim Potter, the policewoman, in Washington, the Department of Justice put the charges out. The Department of Justice is run, the Civil Rights Division is run by Kristen Clark. That's Biden's appointment. She's a Farrakhan racist. She believes that the amount of melanin you have not only determines the darkness of your skin, but also makes you morally and intellectually superior to. I mean, that's the nation.
Yeah, I mean, and what you just say, all this is verifiable. I mean,
but here's what
it's all documented.
Okay, the same day they announced. Now, the January 6th protest inside the Capitol didn't burn the Capitol down. It didn't destroy a lot of things. It didn't kill any. They didn't kill anyone. People died of natural causes. They were all Trump supporters. And one woman, a 14-year veteran of the Air Force, Ashley Babbitt, was murdered. She was unarmed. She's a small person. She was murdered by a Capitol police officer. It's on video, her murder, showing she wasn't menacing anybody. She wasn't a threat to anyone. The same day they announced, one, they're not going to reveal the identity of the Capitol Police murderer. Two, he's not going to be charged with anything. This is if you kill a white person. I mean, it's so upside down, everything now. Where there are still, Pelosi is holding these people in jail without bail from the January 6th incident. They've been in jail for 4 months. Also, the guy with the video camera who filmed the death, who's a Hispanic American, they arrested him yesterday. These are fascists we have in the White House. Nancy Pelosi, I call her Nazi Pelosi. She's very good at fascism. She immediately denounced it as an armed insurrection, even though they didn't confiscate one arm. They arrested, 200 or 300 people. Not one firearm was found. Nobody, as I say, the crowd didn't kill anybody, and they didn't do. It wasn't any worse. It wasn't any worse than Linda Sarsour, this rabid anti-Semite, who led a mob into the chambers of the Judiciary Committee last year to obstruct the proceedings, the confirmation hearings of Brett Kavanaugh. That was actually an insurrection, but the Democrats defended it as democracy in action.
Right.
That's the universe, the Orwellian universe we inhabit now.
Folks, this is Book Talk with Corbin. I'm your host, and we're speaking to our friend of the show and one of our most popular guests, New York Times bestselling author David Horowitz. He's just put out a book, The Enemy Within, How Totalitarian Movement is Destroying America. And he's announced that he's got another book coming out soon, too. It's hard to keep up with this, brother, but we need to do that. We need to not only keep up with him, but make sure we're buying extra copies and sharing them with other patrons. Brother, I need to cut the interview now. Of course, we're going to be in touch with you. Do you have any final comments you'd like to say?
Well, I wrote this book from experience. I was raised by communists. I was a leader of the New Left. I got out of it when I saw that it was not about peace or justice. It was a hate America left. And I've watched it take over the Democrat Party over the next 50 years. It succeeded with the election of Barack Obama. And you have to not be a racist to see Obama as he is. The left, anybody who's critical of Obama is a racist. That's a That's a racist lie right there. So this book is a warning. And I think it's one of the most important things I've written, because I think our country is in danger of becoming its opposite. The Democrats have tried everything, starting with voter IDs. Well, I don't want to go on too long, but voter ID. Democrats actually think that poor Black people are too stupid to be able to get voter photo ID. You can't get food stamps, you can't get welfare, you can't get prescription drugs. And even if it were true, instead of the big lie that it is, the solution would be, let's have a government program to provide people with voter IDs. But the Democrats are in the business of stealing elections, and that's why they don't want the voter ID. And the frightening thing is they've got 100 corporations behind them.
Yeah. Folks, this is Book Talk with Corbin. We're going to conclude right here and want to thank David Horowitz. I guess in many respects, sort of view him as like an Old Testament prophet. But I hope that we listen to this prophet. Brother, I will be in touch. Okay?
Right. Thank you. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you, brother.